G'day guys, a little battery chat. Your humble N70ZZ battery over there, it's got a few options within that case size. I've got a few things to say about that and I think you should listen to that. My humble soldiers, or my humble athletes, I wanted to talk about the different kinds of batteries within the same case size. This case size is known as N70ZZ. These goes in your Hiluxes and all these kind of things, but it's internationally known as a Group 27 case size. Within this Group 27 case size, you have different, you have starting batteries, dual purpose batteries, and deep cycle batteries. I liken batteries often to athletes to make it easier to understand, because when you understand, when you have the analogy of a battery as an athlete, then things like nutrition comes in place. All of these kind of things starts making sense. So this battery would be very similar to a power lifter. Huge amount of strength, massive power, fast, and this battery here would be likened to, for lack of a better term, a CrossFit athlete. Can do both worlds. Not to the extent what this one do, but comes pretty close. Same for this. This is a long distance runner. This battery here can probably do what the long distance runner does, but there's a point where the long distance runner exceeds expectations. My job as a battery specialist is to make sure that I apply the correct battery to the right application for you. And my biggest goal from a battery man special point of view is to get, you come to me and ask me for a battery. My biggest purpose is to make sure that that battery does what I say it does, because otherwise, where's the value in that? So to apply the correct battery and tech in the right application, so that I can make sure that my word is good for what I specify the battery to be. From a battery man's perspective, the more I can ask and the more I can figure out about not only what is the application we used in it, but the charging system. The charging system has a massive effect on the longevity of the battery. If you charge the batteries incorrectly, it's pretty much saying to your athlete, hey mate, we want you to perform to your utmost best, but we are only going to feed you every now and then, or we're going to feed you with KFC or junk food. So, still learning this YouTube thing. I probably shouldn't say any brand names, but hey, we are learning. So coming back to the battery kind of things, where would I use these? Where's the best way to use these? So this battery here comes in your stock standard vehicle, cranks over your engine. Large compression engine that needs a huge amount of current to be applied and power to be out there to swing that motor over. Now we start adding accessories to our vehicle. The manufacturers of the vehicles spec a certain case size battery or a certain size battery based on the accessories that they are running and manufacturing the vehicles with. Then me and you come and modify our vehicles, and we add a bunch of floodlights, and we add compressors, bigger stereos, all sorts of bells and whistles, a small fridge or whatever. And that's now when we need to start looking at what is our usage, our power usage. And this is where I come in as a battery man. I go, okay, cool. Depending on how many accessories you're running, you might still be okay with this, because the manufacturers do allow a threshold, I guess, to use the stock standard battery that comes with it. But then if you start adding a lot more, and that is situation dependent, I might actually go and say, okay, cool. We've now outgrown this battery. We are now demanding too much of this battery, and you might actually be stuck next to the road with a depleted battery. Let's go with this one. This battery here, this one here, specific one, cranks out. They can range from anywhere from 700 ccas up to, I think this is the highest one, almost 900 ccas when you actually test it. It's spec for 850 cca, but if I put a CCA test on this, I know that these batteries crank over higher. But it's only a 90 amp hour or 95 amp hour. The way these batteries work is they have a lot of thin little plates in them to allow for massive surface area so we can release the energy fast. What they've done is in this battery is they've made the plate count less, but they've made them thicker to give us that cyclic component. Now we're getting into a realm where this battery is only a 760 CCA battery, but it's 120 amp hour. So this is where if somebody is only running one battery system and say for instance a converted 4x4 that we are going camping with and these kind of things, and we haven't gone to the point where we've installed a separate battery system for accessories to run off. We've only got the stock standard battery under the bonnet, but we've got an additional loading, meaning increased accessories. Then I might go and say, I recommend this battery based on the accessories that you're running, because now we have an added amp hour capability. When we start getting into the realm of longer duration and autonomy required for the accessories to run, then we'd look at a deep cycle battery. Deep cycle battery is where your long distance running athlete comes into play. Small loads in comparison with what we are running, but long duration, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your imagination is the limitation. You can go large in terms of duration, but the problem and normally missed aspect of this whole ordeal is the nutrition or the charging systems. The charging systems have to be set up properly. If we don't set up the charging systems properly, and we go from a conventional alternator charging without additional charging ways of charging, then we can run into problems called sulfation. Now, sulfation is when on the plate of the battery, and I'll go into detail on this, I think, on another video, but an easy way to think of it is the surface area of the plate needs to be clean and for the electrolyte to have a reaction with, because at the end of the day, this is a little lab of chemistry happening in here. Temperature has an effect. Honestly, everything that we've learned in our grade 3 or primary school chemistry class happens inside this battery. Temperature, surface area, acid concentration, surface area, all of these kind of things plays a huge effect. Now, if we don't alter and make sure that we've got a diversified charging system in a vehicle that's running a house battery system, we will run into problems where sulfation settles in. Sulfation is when the plate has small crystals forming on it, and the crystals takes the surface area away for the electrolyte to react with, and that's when the battery starts dying effectively, because if sulfation is allowed to settle in too deep, then it's unbreakable. You've got to throw the battery away, recycle the battery, and start over again. And so it's my job as a battery specialist to make sure that I ask the correct questions and take my due diligence to make sure that the charging system is compatible, not only compatible but sufficient. This battery has this threshold of how much current it needs to start accepting a charge. If you put a little 1 amp charger on this battery and expect, if you've taken 80% of its capacity out and you only apply 1 amp, it's going to the battery might not even accept that charge, because it's like trying to fill a bucket with gale force winds and you're trying to throw the water. Imagine you've got a bucket and gale force winds and you've got a small little 1 liter bottle of water and you're throwing it in the bucket. The wind's going to blow it away. You have to apply enough force for that water to go into the bucket. The same thing happens in charging systems. If you only apply a small amount of current over a long duration of time, that battery might not even accept that charge, and it starts sulfating. And on top of that, these batteries, being wet cell flooded batteries, require a finishing phase where at the end of the charging profile, the voltage is slightly increased to excite the electrolyte to there's little bubbles of hydrogen that forms on the plate, and it helps to mix the acid concentration thoroughly throughout the plate cavity. If that's not done, then something like stratification settles in. Stratification is when the acid concentration in the plate cavity is unequal. It's not homogenized. And so you might have a more reactive plate at the bottom as the acid concentration is higher at the bottom than at the top. And so we up the voltage a little bit on the charging systems to allow for mixing of that. Now those little bubbles are hydrogen. And so this is why it's always best not to put a wet cell battery in an unventilated area. Hence why the regulations says that these kind of batteries needs to be in a cabin or a compartment that is ventilated to the outside ambient, outside world. So you cannot install these batteries inside a cabin of a camper van, or caravan, or a boat. The hydrogen will explode. I've had a case when I was still on my corporate kind of side where an auto electrician that we supplied didn't. I don't know if he didn't get all of the information from the customer, or the customer didn't say everything. But the long story short is that naturally the auto electrician would quote 2 styles of batteries, because you can get these batteries in AGMs as well, sealed AGMs. These ones you can install because they don't gas. So naturally he offered the 2 types, and the wet cells are normally the more economical batteries. They are cheaper than the AGMs, and lo and behold, the customer probably bought the cheaper batteries and then didn't tell the auto electrician that he's going to be installing them inside the cabin, or didn't do his due diligence to make sure that he can't, where he can install them. Camper van sat in the sun, as you do. We didn't use it. Windows closed up, hydrogen builds up, explosion. Acid everywhere. They had to write off the camper van. So please, 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 never ever install a wet cell battery in a place that is unventilated to the outside world. They are still your best bang for buck in terms of money spent and life cycle life received. Lithium is a different animal that comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. But within I still believe in the wet cell batteries. They, done properly, will last you a long time. These ones are maintainable, and that's a drawback because it's not always easy to get access to where the, if I think of some of the camper vans, there's a shelf that you have to try and get in and over to get to fill these up, and you have to be able to see visibly from the top of how far you add water in. But I have systems out there now that is approaching 8 years in service on the same batteries, because the speccing has been done properly and the maintenance have been done properly. So bang for buck, I still believe in these. They will done properly. I mean, nickel cadmium batteries in some of the substations that I've worked in was in service for over 15 years. 15 years. You can't beat that. Yes, the lithiums can offer up to 6,000 cycles, but at the end of the day, you're paying 4, 5, 6 times the price of that nickel cadmium battery or antimony battery. But they bring a set of other advantages that I will go into in another video. In a nutshell, you get your starting battery for starting engines. You get your dual purpose battery when we've started engines, but we've added a whole bunch of electronics and accessories. Then once we get to a point where we're now beefing up the electronics and the accessories, and we are getting to a point where we need autonomy and duration of time, your deep cycle battery is what you want to use. Give me a like if you like, or a suggestion what you'd like to see, and hear from. I'm here in my humble little container shop. I wanted to bring value to my local community with low overheads, and enjoy the love of batteries. I do enjoy batteries. I've been doing it for 17 years now, and through various unbelievably cool places I've been through with the power and power quality machines, so power electronics, UPSs and inverters that uses standby batteries, and some cases deep cycle, depending on what the requirement is. But yeah, a vast amount of experience that I'd like to share and show the difference to help you, select the right battery, and just things maybe to think on of when you do look at doing a project, or why you're experiencing problems with your battery system. A lot of things that people sometimes miss is your charging system. A lot of times people are quick to just point fingers at the batteries and not realizing that actually, we've got alternators with windings that's, for argument's sake, 8 years old, and the epoxy insulation on the windings also degrade, inhibiting the performance of an alternator. Same thing goes for chargers. Chargers are made with 10-cent components, on mass scale. If something goes wrong, and the unfortunate thing is these problems are only seen years after the problem actually happened. You get to, your battery man goes, yes, this battery under those loading conditions, I think they should use 5 to 6 years. You get to year 4, the battery man is hopefully still there, but then the battery fails. Battery man's done his due diligence and asking the right questions, but at the time of installation, everything was fine. It's the charging system sometimes that causes and the behavior of the use of the batteries. For instance, this battery here, you would see the best performance out of this battery, obviously given that you're maintaining it, with the proper setting of the charging algorithm, but making sure that this battery goes through the full 3 phases of charging: bulk, absorption, and float or finishing. These 2 batteries here, they go in mostly vehicles, and we don't always have the time duration that of driving. The engines are not running for long enough for the battery to go through the full cycle. Hence why you see these batteries lasting 3 to 5 years. I believe that if the charging systems were different, and you have a full duration charge that are able to be accepted, but we're not using our batteries, our vehicles that long, for a 8-hour charge or whatever. But this is where these shine, because they get the proper nutrition charge, and you see what the full cycle it gets. So opportunity charging is what normally kills these batteries, when they don't get a chance to have a full feed after a cycle. A cycle is a charge and a discharge. And so whenever you go and do quoting on batteries, especially deep cycle batteries, be careful. There are some sharks out there selling standby batteries. I don't have a 100 amp hour standby battery here now, but this is an 18 amp hour standby battery. 18 amp hour standby battery is used in alarms or UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies, that sits normally at float voltage for the duration of their life, and only 10 or 15% cycled. Whereas this battery, same case size as this one, so this one, same case size as that one, but this is an EV or motive power class deep cycle battery. So this one here is designed to be able to be 50%, 80% depleted. Same as this one. This one is considered a motive power battery or traction battery. So you can really hammer these. There's a relationship between depth of discharge and cycles you get out of a battery, but that is a topic for the deep cycle kind of applications. These ones here, it probably still applies to this. Each battery has a cyclic kind of thing, but they're not as it'll be like using a hammer to screw in a screw. Don't do that. Just use a deep cycle battery for a deep cycle application, and use a starting battery for a starting application. When you start adding accessories, depending on the amount of accessories, then you can start looking at a dual purpose battery. Be careful there are people out there selling dual purpose batteries as deep cycle batteries. Just because it started off life, it says, sometimes they even say deep cycle on here. This one says deep cycle and starting battery. But ultimately, this is a starting battery that the plates are made thicker and has a cyclic capability. For me to go and, I think it needs to be placed in its own category and not roped into a deep cycle battery. The argument could be made and said that within the deep cycle realm, there's different tiers of deep cycles where you can put this one kind of at the bottom, slightly above standby. But that's another topic. I'll leave it at this. Within these case sizes, this is obviously one case size, but you get the same kind of variant in tech within your NS70 or Group 24 battery, and also your Group 31 battery. So yeah, I just wanted to explain the difference between these batteries, because I noticed that there's not enough information, having it on the bench here, explaining what is the difference here and why the flooded batteries are still a good choice. Just because people are saying, oh, go lithium, it doesn't always mean that it's the right thing for you. You might not have the right charging system to facilitate the lithiums yet. So I'll leave it at that. Willem Bester from WB3 Batteries in Kumeu, New Zealand. Cheers.